if I told you that the difference between getting useless AI responses and breakthrough genealogy insights comes down to just 17 words? Words that transformed my great-great-grandmother Mary from a complete mystery into a real person with a compelling story. In the next 20 minutes, you're going to learn the exact anatomy of those 17 words, plus the 3-step formula that turns any AI tool into your personal genealogy research partner. I'm talking word-for-word prompts you can copy and paste starting today. Welcome back to Ancestors and Algorithms, where family history meets artificial intelligence. I'm your host, Brian, and this is episode 3, The Prompt Whisperer, Getting AI to Speak Genealogist. If you caught episodes 1 and 2, you know we've covered why your family tree needs an AI research assistant, and we've met the 4 horsemen of genealogy AI. Today, we're diving into the secret sauce, how to actually talk to these AI tools so they give you breakthrough insights instead of generic fluff. Let me tell you about the 17 words that changed everything. 3 months ago, I was completely stuck on my great-great-grandmother, Mary O'Sullivan. All I knew was her name, that she was born in Ireland around 1845, and that she somehow ended up in Boston by 1870. That's it. 25 years of on and off research, and that's all I had. So naturally, when I first started experimenting with AI, I did what most of us would do. I opened up ChatGPT and typed, "Help me find information about Mary O'Sullivan born in Ireland around 1845. And you know what I got back? Generic advice about searching Ancestry.com and Family Search. Stuff I'd been doing for literally decades. It was like asking your GPS for directions and having it say, "Try going somewhere else." Technically correct, completely useless. I tried again. Where should I look for Irish genealogy records from the 1840s? More generic answers. How do I research Irish ancestors? Same thing. I was getting frustrated because I knew these AI tools were supposed to be smart, right? But they were giving me the same basic advice I could find in any Genealogy 101 book. That's when I realized I was talking to AI like it was Google. I was asking for information when what I really needed was a research partner. Someone who could think with me, not just regurgitate facts at me. And that's where our golden rule comes into play. AI is your research assistant, not your researcher. I needed to stop asking AI to find Mary for me and start asking it to help me think through the problem of finding Mary. Big difference. So here's what changed everything. Instead of treating AI like a search engine, I started treating it like that brilliant genealogy friend we all wish we had. You know, the one who asks really good questions and helps you see patterns you've been missing. Those 17 magic words were, quote, "I'm stuck on an Irish ancestor. Help me brainstorm research strategies I might have missed," end quote. Simple, right? But here's why it worked. Instead of asking for facts, I asked for thinking. Instead of demanding answers, I invited collaboration. And instead of expecting AI to know about my specific ancestor, I asked it to help me think about the research process itself. But before I dive into the technical stuff, let me tell you the rest of Mary's story, because I want you to understand just how transformative this shift in thinking can be. So I found Mary Bridget O'Sullivan in those records I'd missed, and suddenly everything started clicking into place. Church records showed she had arrived in Boston in 1868, not 1870 like I'd assumed. Ship passenger list revealed she traveled with her sister Catherine, who I didn't even know existed. And here's the kicker. Catherine's death record in 1875 listed their parents' names and their specific townland in County Cork. Within 2 weeks of that first AI conversation, I had traced Mary back to her birth family in Ireland, found her parents' marriage record, and discovered 3 siblings I never knew about, all because AI helped me think differently about the research process. Now, let's break down what I call the anatomy of a power prompt. Every great genealogy prompt has 3 essential ingredients, and I want you to think of this as a sandwich. We've got context as the bottom piece of bread, the specific ask as the filling, and verification instructions as the top piece of bread. Let's call it the genealogy prompt sandwich. But here's what most people don't realize. There are actually different types of sandwiches for different types of research problems. Think of it like ordering at a deli. You wouldn't order the same sandwich for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? Same thing with AI prompts. The bottom piece, which is context loading, this is where most people go wrong. They give AI no context and expect miracles. It's like walking up to a stranger at a genealogy conference and saying, "Help me find my ancestor," without explaining anything else. Here's how I learned to load context effectively. Instead of just saying, Mary O'Sullivan, born Ireland, 1845, I started with, quote, "I'm researching my great-great-grandmother, Mary O'Sullivan. She was born in Ireland around 1845, married in Boston by 1870 to Patrick Murphy, had at least 3 children, and appears on the 1880 census in Dorchester, Massachusetts. I've exhausted obvious searches on Ancestry and Family Search. The Great Famine timing makes this challenging, and many Irish records from this period are missing," end quote. See the difference? I'm not just giving AI facts. I'm painting a research picture. I'm explaining what I know, what I've tried, and what the specific challenges are. But let me give you more examples of good context loading, because this is where the magic really happens. Here's how I would load context for different types of research problems. For a missing person between census records, quote, "I'm researching John Smith, age 35, in the 1900 census in Chicago, married to Emma with 2 young children. He's completely missing from the 1910 census, and I can't find Emma or the children either. John was a carpenter, according to the 1900 census. I've checked death records, moved to surrounding counties, and searched for name variations. The family seems to have vanished entirely," end quote. For an adoption or name change scenario, quote, "I'm researching my grandmother Helen Johnson, born around 1915. Family oral history says she was adopted as a young child, but all records I find start when she's about age 12. Her death certificate lists parents as unknown. I've found her in school records starting in 1927, but nothing before that. The adoption may have been informal, which was common in that era," end quote. Notice how each context sets up not just the facts, but the research challenge and what's already been tried? That's what tells AI how to help you think about the problem. Now on to the filling, or the specific ask. This is where you get laser focused about what kind of thinking you need. Are you looking for new research strategies, alternative record types, different search approaches, pattern recognition? But here's what I've learned after months of experimenting. Different types of asks work better for different types of problems. Let me give you my go-to arsenal of specific asks. For brick walls, quote, "Help me brainstorm research strategies I might have missed, focusing on alternative record types and creative search approaches," end quote. For conflicting information, quote, "Help me analyze these conflicting pieces of evidence and suggest ways to determine which is most reliable," end quote. For pattern recognition, "Help me identify patterns in this data that might reveal family relationships or migration routes," end quote. For timeline reconstruction, quote, "Help me create a logical timeline from these scattered pieces of evidence and identify what's missing," end quote. For record analysis, quote, "Help me extract maximum genealogical value from this document and suggest related records to search for," end quote. Some of my other favorite specific asks include, help me brainstorm record types I might have overlooked. What research strategies work best for this time period and location? What patterns should I look for in the records I do have? How can I work around missing records from this era? What collateral research might help break through this wall? What alternative explanations might account for this evidence? How can I research this ancestor's community and social networks? Notice I'm not asking, find Mary O'Sullivan. I'm asking for thinking tools, and here's a pro tip. The more specific your ask, the more useful the response. Instead of, help me research Irish ancestors, try, help me research Irish Catholic immigrants who arrived in Boston during the Great Famine years when many parish records were destroyed. And finally, the top piece, verification instructions. This is crucial, and it's where we reinforce that golden rule. You always want to end your prompt with instructions about verification and next steps. Something like, please provide specific record types and repositories to check, and remind me to verify any theories with primary sources. But let me give you some variations on verification instructions, because different research situations call for different approaches. For experimental research, quote, please suggest specific sources to check and remind me that these are theories to test, not facts to accept, end quote. For sensitive topics, quote, please provide balanced perspectives and remind me to verify any controversial claims with multiple independent sources, end quote. For costly research, quote, please prioritize suggestions by likelihood of success and cost effectiveness, and remind me to verify any theories before investing in expensive records, end quote. For collaborative research, quote, please suggest ways to verify these theories with living family members and remind me to document all sources, end quote. The key is that you're always ending with instructions that reinforce responsible research practices. Now let me show you the sandwich method in action with my Mary O'Sullivan breakthrough. Here's the exact prompt that changed everything. Quote, I'm researching my great-great-grandmother Mary O'Sullivan. She was born in Ireland around 1845, married in Boston by 1870 to Patrick Murphy, had at least 3 children, and appears on the 1880 census in Dorchester, Massachusetts. I've exhausted obvious searches on Ancestry and Family Search. The Great Famine timing makes this challenging, and many Irish records from this period are missing. Help me brainstorm research strategies I might have missed, focusing on alternative record types and creative search approaches. Please provide specific record types and repositories to check and remind me to verify any theories with primary sources. End quote. That's the full sandwich. Context, specific ask, verification reminder. And here's what ChatGPT came back with that I had never considered. Boston Catholic Church records, Irish newspaper archives, land records from her husband's family, passenger lists using alternate spellings, and this was the breakthrough, looking for her children's records to work backwards. But here's the kicker. It also suggested something I'd never thought of. It said, consider that Mary might have used a middle name or been known by a nickname. Irish women often went by their confirmation names in America. That single insight led me to search for Mary Bridget O'Sullivan instead of just Mary O'Sullivan. Found her in 3 different records I'd missed for 25 years. But let me share another example that shows you how AI can help with a completely different type of problem. A few weeks later, I was working on my wife's German line. Her great-grandfather, Heinrich Schmidt, appeared in immigration records in 1882, but I couldn't find any trace of him in Germany before that. Classic German research challenge, right? Here's the prompt sandwich I used. Quote, I'm researching Heinrich Schmidt, who immigrated to Chicago from Germany in 1882 according to passenger lists. He was born around 1860, but I cannot find any German records for him. Schmidt is an extremely common surname, and I have no village of origin. He married shortly after arrival and had 6 children. I've tried obvious searches in major German genealogy databases without success. Help me brainstorm strategies for identifying his specific place of origin in Germany, focusing on indirect evidence and community research approaches. Please suggest specific record types and methodologies, and remind me to verify any theories through multiple independent sources." End quote. AI came back with brilliant suggestions I hadn't considered. Researching his wife's background to find their courtship location. Checking Chicago German community organizations and churches. Looking at his children's sponsors and baptismal records to identify his social network. And this was the breakthrough. Checking naturalization records for his specific port of entry and ship. Then researching other passengers from the same ship to identify possible relatives or neighbors. This approach led me to discover that Heinrich had traveled with his brother Johann, whose naturalization papers included their specific village in Prussia. Boom! Breakthrough through community research that I never would have thought of on my own. Now let me teach you what I call the verification sandwich method. Because remember, AI is your research assistant, not your researcher. This is how you take those AI insights and turn them into solid genealogy gold. Step 1 is what I call trust but verify immediately. When AI gives you a research suggestion, your first move is to test it with a quick search. Don't spend hours going down rabbit holes without first checking if the suggestion has merit. Step 2 is document the source of the idea. In my research log, I now write, AI suggested checking Boston Catholic records for Mary O'Sullivan Murphy. Reasoning, Irish Catholic immigrants often appear in parish records even when missing from civil records. This way, I remember why I'm following this lead and I can evaluate the reasoning later. Step 3 is verify with primary sources only. AI might help you think of where to look, but the actual proof comes from the records themselves. Always. All right. Time for this week's homework assignment, and this one is going to be fun. I want you to pick your biggest current brick wall, that ancestor who's been driving you crazy for months or maybe even years. Here's what you're going to do. First, write out your context using the sandwich method. Include what you know, what you've tried, and what the specific challenges are. Then, create your specific ask. What kind of thinking do you need? New strategies? Alternative record types? Different search approaches? Finally, add your verification instruction. Then take that prompt sandwich to whichever AI tool you prefer. ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, or Perplexity, and see what happens. But here's the important part. I want you to document not just what AI suggests, but how those suggestions make you think differently about your research problem. Are there patterns you hadn't noticed? Record types you'd overlooked? Alternative explanations you hadn't considered? Then, and this is crucial, I want you to try at least one of those AI suggestions within the next week. Actually test it. See if it leads anywhere. Now, I know what you're thinking, but what if AI gives me bad advice? And you're right to be cautious. That's exactly why we have our golden rule. Let me share a recent example where AI led me astray because I want you to learn from my mistakes. I was working on a Civil War ancestor, and AI suggested he might have enlisted under an alias to hide from creditors. Sounded plausible, right? So I spent 3 days searching for alternate names in military records. Found nothing. Then I decided to step back and check the obvious stuff I'd supposedly already done. Turns out, I'd been searching the wrong state entirely. He'd enlisted in his birth state, not his residence state. Sometimes the simple explanation is the right one. That's why the verification step is so critical. AI is brilliant at generating possibilities, but it can't judge which possibilities are most likely to be true. That's still your job as the researcher. If you get a breakthrough, I'd love to hear about it. Send me an email. I'm at ancestorsandai@gmail.com, or message me on social media. And if you get stuck or the AI gives you something that doesn't make sense, let me know about that too. Because remember, AI makes mistakes, and part of becoming a good prompt whisperer is learning to recognize when those suggestions are worth pursuing and when they're leading you astray. I'm building a collection of successful prompt examples from real listeners working on real brick walls, and I'd love to feature your success story in a future episode, with your permission, of course. I'll change names and details to protect privacy, but sharing your breakthrough might help someone else get unstuck on their own brick wall. And here's something cool. I'm starting to see patterns in which types of prompts work best for which types of problems. DNA matches respond well to relationship analysis prompts. Immigration research benefits from community context prompts. Missing women often require prompts that challenge assumptions about names and identities. I'll be sharing these patterns in future episodes as I learn more. Let's recap what we covered today. We learned that effective AI prompts are like sandwiches. Context on the bottom, specific ask in the middle, verification instructions on the top. We saw how treating AI like a research partner instead of a search engine completely changes the quality of responses you get. And we walked through the verification sandwich method to ensure you're using AI insights responsibly. Most importantly, we reinforced our golden rule. It's brilliant at helping you think, terrible at proving facts. Next week, we're diving into something that's going to blow your mind. Bringing ancestors back to life. AI photo magic that made my mom cry. I'm going to show you the AI tools that can restore damaged family photos, colorize black and white images, and even animate old portraits. Fair warning, you're going to want to have tissues handy for this episode because the emotional impact is real. If you're enjoying Ancestors and Algorithms, please take 30 seconds to leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps other genealogists find us, and I read every single review. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and soon-to-be TikTok. Just search for Ancestors and Algorithms. I share quick tips and behind-the-scenes content throughout the week. Until next week, this is Brian. Now go forth and whisper some prompts.